Welcome back, fellas. We are officially less than a week away. I think, 4 days away from the NFL draft. So we figured we would do one last shebang, one last hurrah. We're going to tackle 3 separate Dynasty rookie mock drafts with landing spots today. I will drop the link to our fantasy-friendly players sheet here. We're going to go through Dane Brugler of the Athletic 7-round mock draft. We're going to go through Ian Cummings' 7-round mock draft from Pro Football Network, and then Chad Reuter's 7-round mock draft from NFL.com. We're going to do a Dynasty rookie mock draft with each one. I'll flash landing spots. We have obviously the sheet for the those of you guys that want to participate in the draft to make reference to. But it should be a lot of fun. We wanted to just do this with one mock draft, but we're like, you know what? We got a bunch of different landing spots on the table, a bunch of different draft capital situations. This is the best time to practice for these rookie mock drafts because each one of these is kind of different. We got, some guys getting good draft capital, some guys getting bad draft capital. One of these mock drafts has Malik Neighbors falling outside the top 10. Like, there's a whole host of different scenarios on the table for us. So we're really not going to waste any time here. And we're going to try and tackle the first one here. Let's see which one's first. We got Dane Brugler's on the deck for the first mock draft. I did drop the link in the chat, and now I shall drop the sleeper link in the chat for those of you guys that can join the mock draft and draft with us here. So rules are at the top. You guys can see it. Superflex, half tight end premium, Dane Brugler 7-round mock draft from the Athletic. And we will go through each one as we get through here. So Danny, what's up?
Not much. I feel like it's nice having 3 mocks for reference rather than, just recycling the same one for the mock drafts we're going to be doing today, because it does give you some variety. Like, people will obviously be watching this back. You'll get the feel of the landing spots, obviously, with the Dane Brugler one, some shocks in there. Same thing with the Ian Cummings one coming up. And of course, to finish it out, we do have the Chad Reuter mock. So all the mocks are actually in the sheet. So if you guys are curious, obviously I posted the fantasy relevant information there. But if you guys want to, check out the mocks as a whole, the links are actually in those spreadsheets that I started. So that should be at the top of chat, pinned at the top of chat. We got a couple comments already in here. First one in here from John Jacob. Yo, what's up, John? Second one from Andrew. He says, less than a week away. I got the 101, the 103, the 108, and the 109. Another guy has the 104, 106, and 107. Our first round is going to be crazy. Nothing better to do on a Sunday morning. Amen, man. Like, I swear, like, the Sunday is like when it really starts hitting in. Like, obviously, all off season, you are seeing the picks that you have and just, kind of salivating over the potential that you could bring in that rookie draft. But once that like Sunday morning of draft week kind of hits, like, you start contextualizing. And again, this is not the way to play Dynasty, but you start like thinking about who could potentially be there at those picks. Like, ooh, like, I feel a good spot about, Brian Thomas's draft capital going top 20. He should be there at my 109 pick in the super flex. Like, you start thinking those types of things. And obviously, again, those picks are liquidity. They aren't said assets because you don't have to put a name to the player yet or a name to the pick yet. But it is fun just if for the most part, especially when it comes to, the 102, the 103, you're not really going to move off those picks and seeing, where Marv goes, where Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors goes. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the draft full. The draft order has been re-rolled. Danny, of course, the lucky asshole that he is, gets the 101, gets the Caleb Williams here. Again, we will do our best to keep you guys updated if you don't have access to this sheet, but I did drop it in the chat. This is Dane Brugler's 1 to 3 rounds. You guys can see it there. Caleb Williams goes 101 to the Chicago Bears. That's the direction that Danny goes with it. Next pick off the board was Marvin Harrison at 102 in this rookie draft. He went number 5 overall to the Arizona Cardinals, who in this mock draft trade down with the Vikings, and then they end up trading back up with the Los Angeles Chargers, it looks like, to go and grab Marvin Harrison. So they get the guy that they wanted. Drake May goes to the New England Patriots. Of course, Fletsky is a Patriots fan, so that is where he ends up going with the 103 there. And again, Jaden Daniels, number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders. Number 5, again, we're going to see pretty chalky top 5s and top 7s. We'll just talk about kind of where these guys end up going. Malik Neighbors off the board next. He goes number 6 overall to the New York Giants. Desperate need for a number 1 wide receiver there. And of course, they've gone to the Louisiana State University for a explosive wide receiver in the past. Then we have Rome Odunze, who went off the board number 9 overall in Brugler's mock draft to the Chicago Bears to pair up with Caleb Williams. So I think, again, a lot of these landing spots so far in Brugler's mock pretty bog standard, even though it was a little wonky how we got there. We got, McCarthy the trade up for McCarthy, and then the Cardinals coming back up. But we've seen Marvin to the Cardinals. We've seen Malik to the Giants. We've seen Odunze to the Bears. McCarthy, the next pick off the board, as we mentioned, in a trade up scenario with the Minnesota Vikings and the Arizona Cardinals. Brock Bowers, the next pick off the board. He was the 10th overall pick to the New York Jets. I actually personally laid some cash down on that because I do think it will happen come draft night. And then we have Brian Thomas Jr., who was the 17th overall pick to the Buffalo Bills in a trade up scenario, which would be very fun. Honestly, I don't know about you, but like if I was the Buffalo Bills, I would definitely consider getting aggressive for some of these top receivers because as much 100%. As I like Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell and some of these guys, they're in need of guys who can come in and produce right away. And even Brian Thomas Jr., to be honest, is one of these guys that maybe will need a little bit of time to get ready. I actually wouldn't mind the Bills being like, Falcons aggressive back in 2011, going up and getting Julio Jones in a trade like that.
That's kind of where my thought on it is as well, is if you can show me on the screen quick.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I just love how the graphic just completely blocks me. It's awesome, but
sorry, I was trying to see who I was going to pick. That's why I was doing that.
And by the way, for those of you that are in the draft, or for those of you that just kind of want to follow along on who could potentially be the best player on the board, if you guys do join those links for the draft, or the links towards the sheet, to correct that. If you guys are on that sheet, I'm just blocking the names every time that somebody is picked. So if you can follow around, the best players available, or the only 2 players left in the first round as of right now, are Michael Penix Jr. to the Raiders in a trade up, and A.D. Mitchell to the Chiefs. Which, I mean, Corey, where are you leaning?
I'm gonna take him. So I was caught between, as you can see here. Whoops, that's Reuter's mock. Brugler's mock. We have Adonai Mitchell going 32 overall to the Chiefs. That was definitely in consideration for me there. We have Michael Penix, who was the next pick off the board there, as a trade-up scenario for the Las Vegas Raiders, sneaking back into the first round. But I also was caught between Ladd McConkey going 33 overall to the Panthers. I think that's a really good spot for him. Keon Coleman, who a prospect that I actually kind of like. I feel like everybody likes to diss on him. He's very scheme specific. I think he might need to move inside some, like 50% of his snaps, but he actually, I believe, has a Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas kind of aura about him, just that physical bully style guy who doesn't seem like he's getting a lot of separation, relative to a Ladd McConkey, but I do think he has football IQ to the point that he can separate. It's just going to need to maybe take some time. The guy's still like 20 and a half years old too. So the Chargers as like a mid or early second round landing spot for Keon Coleman. I actually really like that.
I do too.
In Brugler's mock here.
The other thing I wanted to ask you there, so I obviously go with Ladd. Keon Coleman goes off the board right after. I think that's pretty standard. The guy that I was really considering there would have been Jonathan Brooks, but the fact that it was third round 65th versus top 50 kind of was a tiebreaker. Again, I have these guys between him and Ladd very close in terms of my overall rankings, depending what you need if you pick at that 1-2 turn. I just think Ladd McConkey, 33rd overall, very, very natural fit, landing there with Carolina to potentially be a target hog right away, versus Jonathan Brooks not going in round 2, kind of being the decider. But if you wanted to go Johnny Brooks there too, he's going to have backfield competition right away with Chuba Hubbard, but I really do feel like this will be Johnny Brooks' backfield in the long term. And who knows, man, having Chuba Hubbard there while he's, getting back from an injury, getting up to NFL speed, having a dependable NFL running back for Carolina could actually work out better for him.
Yeah, I think this is the offseason of Bryce Young in general. So whatever you got to do to build around him, I feel like some people think that the Panthers are not in need of a running back and wouldn't address the running back position early. But, I mean, if the wide receiver position's not looking good on the board or whatever, like the Panthers just need offensive playmakers in general, whether it's wide receiver, tight end, or running back. So if I was Carolina, I wouldn't leave the first 4 rounds without spending every single pick that I have on offense, trying to either beef up the offensive line, which they've done mostly in free agency so far, and then also to add playmakers, whether it's a wide receiver at 33 like Ladd McConkey, and then a running back at 65 like they do with Johnny Brooks. So a lot of things up in the air there. We do have Trey Benson and Troy Franklin off the board. Troy Franklin goes off the board. Where did he go? 48th overall, 46th. Yep. Yeah, 48th overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Actually really, really like that fit for him. He'd be playing a downfield playmaker role, kind of what Calvin Ridley was doing last year, except Franklin actually excels in that role even more so than Ridley does. And you actually have comped Franklin on his high end to Calvin Ridley, which is kind of an interesting dynamic there. Sorry, let me just rattle off these other ones here too.
Go
We
for
got
it.
Benson, went 70th to the New York Giants. He was the 204, 205 in this draft. Blake Corum was off the board. Where did he go? Blake Corum, of course, goes to the Chargers at 69th overall. No surprise to anybody. Rick Pearsall, 46th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Xavier Legette, 62nd overall to the Baltimore Ravens. Braylon Allen goes off the board on
Fourth
day
round.
3, actually. Fourth
112.
round to the Las Vegas Raiders. Bit of a reach, in my opinion, for a day 3 running back, but not a horrible pick, I suppose.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to touch upon Ricky Pearsall. He does go off the board there at that 2-7 spot, and he's somebody that I recently watched a little bit more film on. I actually, so I had my initial rankings. I'm like, you know what, draft weekend, I want to make sure I have all my fronts covered on some of these guys. So for reference, the biggest guys that I actually ended up being higher on in relation to where I was before was Ricky Pearsall and was Jermaine Burton. Now, Jermaine Burton, I'm not going to get into the character concerns, like if he falls to the 5th round, 6th round, but I did see underrated nuance in his game. Like initially, I just pegged him. You know what? He's this classic burner that's going to work on the 3rd level of the field, but doesn't have much nuance to his game. But I watched back, man, and especially earlier in the season before he realized just how inaccurate Jalen Milroe was, like he was winning pretty consistently. Like if you watch the Texas game in particular, the box score was not friendly to him. I think he went like 2 catches for 60 yards in that game, but there was multiple times he was uncovering, he was mailboxing for Jalen Milroe. And like when I say Jalen Milroe may have one of the worst quarterback games or out of quarterbacks with hype, he had one of the worst games I've ever watched against Texas. I'm not exaggerating, man. Like Jalen Milroe was really struggling in that game. So Jermaine Burton ended up being, I believe, my wide receiver 16 or 17. Ricky Pearsall, I feel like I underrated him as an athlete on that first watch. Watched 2 more games, specifically that South Carolina game. He ended up cracking as my wide receiver 14. So a couple guys speaking specifically to their landing spots here. Ricky Pearsall, obviously going to the Indianapolis Colts in this mock, and it's pretty curious to me because I do feel like his best role at the next level is going to come as a slot receiver, kind of like a Christian Kirk type, where he's best in the slot, but he does have some Z versatility. I feel like that would be the best fit for Ricky Pearsall. But the problem with Indianapolis, of course, is you already have Josh Downs basically occupying that role.
Yeah, and I think Josh Downs is a better player than Ricky Pearsall, to be honest. So,
Downs
John
good.
basically says Indy such a hit to Pearsall's value, wouldn't it? Yeah, I believe it would be a pretty big hit to his value. 210, we had Bo Nix, who went 2nd round to the Los Angeles Rams, successor to Matthew Stafford. I think that's a great fit for him. I somehow got Jalen Wright, late 3rd round pick to the Dallas Cowboys at 211. To me, he should have been off the board in the early 2nd round. Roman Wilson was a mid-2nd round pick, I believe, to the Pittsburgh Steelers there. Yeah. He went off the board, at 51 overall. So good draft capital for him. To me, he's kind of like, if you guys are wondering, like, let your league mates draft these players, Roman Wilson strikes me as one of those guys because I think he's going to go high in the actual NFL draft, but from his analytical profile that stacks up in our prospect model, he has a landmine tag on him. And also Matt Harmon charted him in reception perception, wasn't a huge fan. Jalen Polk was also somebody I was considering with my pick.
Oh, I love that.
He went off the board in the early Detroit 3rd round, I believe, to the Detroit Lions, which I absolutely love that fit. You get yourself a sure-handed guy, power player. You have St. Brown, obviously the yak guy, Jameson Williams to take the top off. I think Polk fits so perfectly for that team.
He is the perfect second receiver to have on that offense. And again, like Amon or St. Brown, I've seen people throw the comp to Polk. I don't think he wins quite the same way as a route runner, but in terms of just get the ball in his hands, sure-handed player, can make something after the catch. Like he is the perfect fit next to Amonra and next to the speed that JMO brings in that offense. So I'd be really excited for him. Now you could argue, okay, what is really the fantasy upside knowing the overall volume that Sam Laporta and Amon St. Brown, like realistically in their primes, like those guys are probably going to be combining for what, 240, 250 targets a year?
Yeah, Polk would be more of a real life NFL fit, I think. But yeah. I think sometimes that lines up for fantasy, right? Like Polk,
for sure.
Polk is just such a Detroit Lion type of guy. I think that's just such a good fit in general. Jatavian Sanders was the next pick. He went off the board to the Dolphins at the end of the 2nd round, which I think is interesting. Marshawn Lloyd went, where did he go? Arizona Cardinals at number 90 overall. I think that'd be a great fit for him to learn behind a veteran like James Conner for half a year because he definitely needs to. He has some work to do from a refinement standpoint. Devontae Walker went off the board 79th to the Falcons. I think that's an interesting landing spot. Will Shipley, where did Will Shipley go off the board? Did he go off the board on day 3? Yeah, he went off the board to the Texans at pick 127 in the 4th round. Then we had Jalen McMillan, who I believe went off on day 3 as well. He went off the board 120th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Bucky Irving, probably day 3 as well. Where do we see Bucky Irving?
I mean, I'm just going to bring it up now. The fact that we're already into the late third round and we're still getting players that I'm excited about just kind of goes to show you how A, good this mock was, and B, how talented this draft is.
Yeah, where did Bucky go off the board? I don't actually see him anywhere.
Fourth round to the Chiefs.
Okay, fourth round of the Chiefs. And then, we had Rattler go off the board. Where did Rattler go off the board? He went off the board to the Broncos at 76. Malachi Corley was the Patriots pick at the early third round. Again, it's way easier if you guys just follow along in the sheet. I'm trying to do this to service anybody who doesn't have access to it, but it's a little challenging. Javon Baker went off the board. Where did he go? He went off the board. I have to make my pick. So Jermaine Burton is up here. I like Malik Washington to the Jets. Actually,
Baker fourth round to the Bills, by the way, to pair next to Brian Thomas.
Yeah, I was a little in a rush there, but I think Malik Washington going fourth round of the Jets is a landing spot I can really, really get behind because they need secondary pass catchers. I guess they took Brock Bowers in this draft, but I still think that Malik Washington would be a great slot receiver for Aaron Rodgers. It's very Randall Cobb-esque, and we know that that Rodgers has gravitated towards a guy like that. Sorry, where did you say Baker ended up going?
Baker fourth round, 128th overall to the Bills to pair next to Brian Thomas.
Okay, yeah, that makes some sense. The Bills trade up for Brian Thomas is something that I definitely could see happening, and Brugler has some connections to what he's hearing and that kind of thing. I wouldn't be shocked if he's hearing that the Bills are trying to get aggressive, whether it's for a top 3 receiver, Odunze, Neighbors, whatever guy kind of falls to the Falcons or so area of the draft. But I do think Brian Thomas Jr. could be their backup plan if they wanted to go pivot towards a different draft there, or a different wide receiver in the draft.
For sure. So we see Jamari Thrash go next. Where did he go in this? That's interesting, by the way. I'll touch upon it. Obviously, it's a pick your flavor type of wide receiver draft, I would say. But for me personally, it's just Jermaine Burton and Brendan Rice being top 100 picks in the fourth round are very, very intriguing. So it would definitely be between those two guys and Ben Sinnott for me. Obviously, landing on the Panthers, 100th overall pick. I understand he was technically pick on day 3, but 100th overall, he might have been 101st.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be 106 or 105 or something like that.
I don't know. Regardless, though, it kind of comes back to me here. If Jermaine Burton gets day 2 capital, I'm cool with taking him in the fourth round. Again, I understand there's concerns with the profile, but I was more excited about him than I thought I'd be on that second rewatch. Because initially I'm like, you know what? I see the allure, Darius Slayton type of player, but on the rewatch, can you guess what my comp ended up being? Deep threat with some route running chops that had some successful years in the mid 2010s.
Mid 2010s.
He's known as a deep threat. No, he's known for his speed, known as a deep threat, and you probably saw a lot of him. You probably saw a lot of him as your hint.
Steve Smith?
No, another team in the division.
Trying to think. New Orleans Saint, probably. Kenny Stills?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I think I've heard Torrey Smith mentioned for Jermaine Burton. Just to give you guys an idea what our schedule is this week. On Monday, we're gonna go through our top 20 wide receiver rankings in descending order and talk about all these guys because we really haven't done that at all this offseason. We're gonna do running backs, probably top 15, I would say, on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we'll go through quarterback and tight end, probably in the same video, or we maybe drop 2 different videos in the same day. And then Thursday morning, we should have a final NFL mock draft before the NFL draft kicks up. This is an interesting question here that IDUP has. I just want to get your thoughts on it. He said, what's a hot take that you guys have will happen Thursday night? So I'm assuming he means in the first round because he said Thursday night. So what's something that we think could happen? I'm going to stick with what I've been talking about so far. I think the Bills could get very aggressive for a receiver. And by very aggressive, I mean trade up to 8 or 9 for Rome Odunze aggressive and give up their first rounder next year type of thing.
I like that call. If I'm thinking about, it's got to be a fantasy related one because I'm just this team's going to
draft a tackle or something. Who cares?
That's just not going to happen. I think the Bills would make a ton of sense. The other one that I'm really having an inkling about is, I don't know if this is a hot take because he's probably expected to go in the 20s to early day 2, in my opinion. But if Xavier Worthy's there at 21 for the Dolphins, it just makes almost too much of sense for them to pass. But nobody's really saying the possibility that they just might go out there and get him. Because, we've talked about this, bro. Tyreek Hill does not have long left. He said, 2 years?
Yeah, year and a half to like he said anywhere between 1 year and 2 years left, and Worthy could use some time to develop anyways. So if you're going to use Worthy and kind of like a plus, you got to think about it financially. Like maybe you want to jettison Tyreek Hill after this year, whether he's ready to retire or not, because he's making so much money. You got to pay your quarterback, you got to pay Jalen Waddle at some point as well. So it actually kind of makes a lot of sense to me that they would go towards a younger replacement for Tyreek Hill if they wanted to move off of him after this year. He's also like a little bit of a headache in general too, so I could see them wanting to do that. Okay, I'm on the board here. We'll recap the picks after the draft is done, but
I'm not gonna lie,
on the board here. Do I want to? Okay, Luke McCaffrey was the next pick. Johnny Wilson, he's off the board.
Hey Bush, if you're looking at the sheet, I haven't blacked out every pick yet. Like
I think I might go. Is Garendo gone? Yeah, Garendo's gone too. Am I gonna miss my pick here? Yeah, I am gonna miss my pick.
Just pause it. Who cares?
Okay, I need to see what I'm looking at here.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna black out the names that have been taken off the board just so I can get an idea here. Isaiah Davis, 7th round to the Cleveland Browns, and I'm a big Isaiah Davis guy, so I think that's going to be the direction that I actually end up going, unless he's on the board. Yeah, he's on the board.
Is Ray Davis gone?
I'm gonna go in that direction there, so I can.
Isaiah Davis available. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? While this is paused, I might as well just recap the rest of the picks that we had since your pick. So you took Jermaine Burton. He was the Rams' 3rd rounder. Ben Sinnott, obviously top of the 4th to the Carolina Panthers.
Great pick.
Yeah, great pick there for sure. Then we had Isaac Garendo, who was he a 5th rounder? Yeah, 5th rounder to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's really interesting. I would love this as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. 4th round pick, Audric Estime. Great compliment to Rashad White. Rashad obviously has the juice that you're looking for, that 4.3 speed. Estime more of a grinder in between the tackles guy. I think that's the perfect time to take a running back as a Buccaneers fan too in that 4th round pick with that 125. I think Audric Estime, Ray Davis, those type of guys make a lot of sense for us. Jacob Cowing was a 5th rounder to the Titans. Interesting slot receiver option there. Ray Davis, 4th rounder to the Packers. I like that as like a long-term A.J. Dillon kind of replacement. Brendan Rice, I think, went in the first 3 rounds, I believe. Yeah. 100th overall pick to the Washington Commanders. Johnny Wilson was a 5th rounder to the Denver Broncos. He's popping as a sleeper for me in the model, so that's an interesting one. And then we had, Theo Johnson was a 3rd round pick to the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Luke McCaffrey, the low-hanging fruit, going to the San Francisco 49ers at 135 overall. It seems like Luke McCaffrey either goes to the Broncos or the 49ers in every single mock draft because his dad played for the Broncos, his brother plays for the 49ers. So those are the only 2 places he's going, according to these draft analysts.
I mean, well, you'll see in the next mock, he actually does go to his brother's rival. So that was pretty funny.
Okay. Well, because then the mock that I did, he went to the Broncos, which was his dad's team. So that's kind of funny that.
I mean, like, I'll just say it. It's not like I'm withholding some crazy information here. He gets drafted to the Rams in the Cummings draft.
I kind of like that. I think that's a
good spot for him. I do too. That'd be a good fit because like Sosa's been pretty adamant. I'm not sure. Have you been keeping track of Sosa's Twitter feed?
Yeah, he's adamant that they're going to add a receiver at some point, right?
Yeah,
I could see them being a surprise round 1 receiver team for sure because Kupp is old and dealt with injuries, and we might look at that receiver core as like, oh, they're set for the time being because they got Nakua in the 5th round last year. But would it shock really any of us if Brian Thomas was on the board at 19 or whatever they pick, and he's a Los Angeles Ram?
Hey, talk about fits for Worthy for that team too. Talk about fits for Worthy too. Like fucking imagine the Rams took him too.
Oh, that'd be great. And they actually relied big time on in-game analytic time speed. So there's 2 guys that are in-game analytic time speed guys in this class. Keon Coleman is one of them.
Yep.
He could be a round 2 option for them if they wanted to go in that direction. Obviously, his time speed and his actual testing speed are both very fast, but Xavier Worthy was the other guy that was like a 99th percentile PFF in-game time speed. The last pick of this mock was Kamani Vidal, who went 7th round to the Buffalo Bills, which I would be very excited about as like a late 4th round potential priority free agent and rookie drafts if that were to happen.
Am I crazy? Or you remember that video of the draft where like Sean McVay was basically telling Les Snead to pound the table for Puka Nacua, and he's basically like, I have the vision for him, I have the role for him. Like in that video, did he not say that his in-game speed charted way higher than
he did? That's why I'm making reference to it. Yeah, he said his in-game speed charted like analytically was very strong, and I'm like, I've never heard a front office talk about in-game speed analytics before.
Yeah.
And that's the shitty thing is like, how sometimes people get on us or get on, fantasy analysts in general. It's like, you think you can do this better than the NFL? It's like, we are lacking a lot more information than the NFL.
Oh, they have so many more
they have
in-game
MPH data. So they know that, if we see Keon Coleman go at 37th overall or whatever, like he went in this mock draft, we should probably not really care about his 4.61, to be honest, because that means that the NFL has in-game data on him saying that he's not a 4.61 runner.
On top of that, with Keon Coleman in particular, like he still had, I'm pretty sure his burst score was still pretty good.
Yeah, it was very good, dude. People get way too. Every draft class has these guys that everybody just wants to dunk on for 3 straight months, and Keon Coleman's one of these guys. And is he perfect? Is his prospect profile like ideal, alluring to the point that I'm gonna leave every single rookie draft with him? No. But I don't have to spend more than like the 15th or 18th pick in a rookie draft on this guy. Like, it's not like I have to take him 107 or something. Like, I would be off of him if that were the case, but everybody is off of him to the point, especially if he falls to like round 2 or even round 3, that he's going to be available in the mid to late second round of some people's rookie drafts. So let's switch over to the Ian Cummings mock. And again, it's in the sheet. If you guys go down to the bottom of the tab, it says Ian Cummings 7-round draft week. You guys can see it there. We're going to go through. It's a little confusing, obviously, that we're going and cycling through a bunch of different mocks, but we'll try and do our best to keep you guys up to date on what, who went where and that kind of thing. So let me send you this link first, Danny, and then I'll drop it in the chat.
For those of you, and then we'll read through some comments too. But for those of you that are like curious as to what it comes to Keon Coleman, like, yes, the speed score overall, even accounting for weight, 62nd percentile, it's not great, but 62nd percentile is not like the anchor that 4.61 would suggest. The 82nd percentile burst score, the natural size that he has, the physicality at the catch point, the underrated athleticism after the catch that I don't think people really give him credit for, man. He's a good after the catch player. Like,
he's just a good athlete in general. Like, I know he doesn't have 4.4 speed, but like if he did, he'd be a fucking top 15 pick probably in the NFL draft.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for reference, we both have him basically with similar grades. So you have him at an 80.0. I have him at an 81.5. We both have him with the same role, project number 1 wide receiver, and we both have him to the same comp, Allen Robinson. And it's funny because it's like Allen Robinson went mid-day 2 with similar concerns about his top end speed, and then he ended up developing into one of the better receivers of the 2010s decade.
Yeah, he had a couple good years in Jacksonville, especially, and then another good one in Chicago too. So, I mean, again, he said, Fantasy Plumber said Harmon fully believes that Coleman needs to play big slot. That's fair. I think that's probably an accurate statement, but I actually don't think that he has to play that his whole career. I think early on he needs to play big slot. So ideally, he goes to a situation like Los Angeles at the top of the second round, like he went in Brugler's mock that we just read. He could play big slot early on in his career. So that would be a pretty interesting landing spot. So Danny, if you want to join this draft and then I'll drop it in the chat here. I'm curious to know some of the comments that are going on.
Yeah, let's get through some comments and then
we got
start it up for you guys.
Yeah, Christmas is here, boys. Yes, sir. I hate the Chiefs' AD Mitchell pick. I actually kind of do as well, to be honest. I think AD Mitchell's a good fit for them in theory, but I
need a pass catcher.
Yeah,
they just need a ready-made one.
Ready guy to produce for you if you're Kansas City, and AD Mitchell is the complete opposite of that. Like, to me, I think AD Mitchell's like one of his best landing spots to
Dallas.
me is Dallas is a good one. I think Tampa's a great one too, because we don't have to have him start on the outside right from day one. And Evans and Godwin are a little long in the tooth. Trey Palmer's a capable number 3. I think that he's a great developmental future number 1 receiver for the Buccaneers. But if he has to go to the team like Buffalo or Kansas City, where he's got to literally start in 2 wide receiver sets from day one, I worry about it a little bit, because the hype obviously will be there if he goes to one of those teams, because they're great quarterbacks.
The other spot that would make a ton of sense, and again, like we were mentioning, a receiver to the Rams, but AD Mitchell, he can sit there as the wide receiver 3 right off the bat. Cooper Kupp, obviously the injury concerns, the age there is definitely a negative for them, and they may want a young receiver to pair with Nacua for the future. Could you imagine Puka Nacua dominating from the slot, dominating underneath, and you have AD Mitchell with that 3-level ability and obviously that top-end speed to be able to impact defenses? Like we saw, Demarcus Robinson was a very, very plus player as their 3rd receiver.
Not a terrible comp for Jermaine Burton also as Demarcus Robinson.
And it's so funny that we mentioned he was literally a Ram in that last mock on day 2.
Yeah.
But
AD Mitchell of the Dolphins also is not a terrible landing spot either for like a developmental number 1 potentially, because they don't have any size really in their receiving core.
No, that makes a ton of sense too. PFF has the Texas wide receiver outside the top 10, and I agree.
I can't put him outside the top 10 because the upside is simply too tantalizing. I mean, we'll talk about this in tomorrow's video when we go through the wide receiver rankings, but again, I can't get on board with people saying that like AD Mitchell is wide receiver 4 in this class, because some people are saying that, but I can get on board with the fact that he should definitely be in the top 10 because the ceiling is very tantalizing. However, his prospect profile is like that of a landmine.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of 7 first-round wide receivers, or projected first-round wide receivers in this case, in my prospect model that was considered a landmine prospect. And it's not a good list. I mean, there's 2 hits from the list, Calvin Ridley and Will Fuller, but the other guys are Jalen Reagor and Henry Ruggs and Kadarius Toney and guys like that. You don't want to be a part of that list. And AD Mitchell, unfortunately, is.
It's the Pickens factor. And it's so funny because obviously they both played at Georgia. Obviously, AD played at Texas this past year, but played at Georgia prior. It's so funny because it's like the top end is so top end for AD Mitchell. Like, we're talking about AD Mitchell's top end being a top 4 clear-cut receiver in this class. The problem is that the effort is not there consistently. He wasn't demanding the targets that you would have wanted. And it kind of felt like at times during games, he was unengaged only until the big moments came where he just re-engaged and then made those plays. Like, if he had just been late game AD Mitchell throughout the whole game, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all with him.
Yeah, no, literally. If he played like college football playoff AD Mitchell all the time, he would be one of the best receivers in this class. This is one last interesting question, then we'll start this mock-up. Yep. Where do you guys think Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, and Odunze ultimately end up? I literally have bets that Marvin will be a Cardinal, Nabers will be a Charger, and Odunze will be a Giant. So that's I think they're going 4, 5, 6. I think everybody's expecting fireworks at the top of this draft where everybody's going to be trading down and trading up and all this stuff. And I think we're going to get to draft night, and these guys are like, we can't pass on these quarterbacks and wide receivers. So the only trade spot that I actually see possible is number 3 overall with the Patriots and the Vikings.
I think it's 3, 4, 5.
But I could see New England just being like, we have to take Drake May because we need a quarterback. And then everybody's going to be trying to get up for McCarthy or whatever if they want to. But then the Cardinals are going to be like, we're not moving off of Harrison Jr. Wide receiver is our biggest need. He's the best wide receiver prospect in the draft. Chargers, wide receivers are our biggest need, and we have Malik Nabers on the board. We're not moving off of this pick. Giants, wide receivers are our biggest need, and we're not moving off of Rome Odunze. I honestly think they're going 4, 5, 6.
I will bite back a little bit on the Cardinals and the Chargers. Cardinals, I agree on the premise, but they've shown the ability last year where if they view, for example,
Marvin Harrison was not on the board last year when they traded that pick. They wanted Paris Johnson,
but we don't know their board.
They could get him later. Marvin Harrison is the difference.
We don't know their board
and last year.
What if they have Rome Odunze or Malik Nabers wide receiver when they say, okay, we could trade down from 4, get a haul from Minnesota, and then potentially move back up? Like, I feel like
you're
that's
right. In theory, they could have that, but I'm very confident they do not. I think they're just going to take Marvin at 4. It's like minus 250 odds of having.
Oh, I think he should be the pick, but I'm just saying, like, that's the possibility. And then the main one too is the Chargers need picks, man. Like, their roster from a cap standpoint, like they just overhauled their wide receiver core. They cut their 2 biggest spends at wide receiver.
And you know what's going to sit there for him on the board? A elite wide receiver prospect. So just pick him.
They have to overhaul the roster though. Like, that's kind of the issue that I have. And on top of that, like, what if Jim Harbaugh just wants the tackle? Like, if he trades down, he can still get a tackle. Like,
I'm so glad that people think he's actually going to take a tackle, because Malik Nabers, number 5 overall, is the easiest bet I've ever made in my entire fucking life.
Sure,
because he is going number 5 to the Chargers, and everybody thinks he's just going to take a tackle because he likes the trenches.
If Minnesota
Malik Nabers is on the board, he's not going to pass him.
If Minnesota offers you 11, 23, and plus, and you can overhaul that roster, get your tackle at 11 and then still have 23 and future capital to play with, I can see that being a learning.
They're not going to do it for McCarthy. That's my hot take on Minnesota. If they trade up for McCarthy, it'll be at number 8 or number 9 overall. They're not going all the way up for McCarthy, because I do not think that these receiver needy and tackle needy teams are going to trade down. I think it's going to go 4, 5, 6, 7, Marvin, Odunze/Nabers at 6, and then Joe Alt. And then that's when the trade possibility starts for JJ McCarthy at 8.
Well, I think the pillar there is it fully depends. Is the JJ McCarthy interest at 6 to the Giants real or not? Because that's going to be the turning point of this draft. If they're not interested, I agree with you. You probably make that trade up to 8. If the Giants are interested in JJ McCarthy and they get that sentiment, Minnesota, that they can't trade to 7, they can't trade to 8, they have to get ahead of the Giants. That is the biggest what if I think of this NFL draft, is how much Minnesota buys that JJ McCarthy would be the Giants pick if he fell to 6.
So to Slasher's point, this wide receiver class is deep, but there is not more
Oh, they're
Odunze's,
the clear
Marvin
cut three.
Harrison Juniors, and
Clear
Malik
cut
Neighbors
top
in it.
three.
This class is deep in terms of role players. But to be
Yeah.
honest with you, if you ask me how many of these receiver prospects turn into number one receivers, I would set the over under at 3.5, to be honest. Because I think Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey, these guys could end up being number one targets on their team someday. But to be honest with you, the number one receivers in this class, there is 3 of them. And I believe they will go off the board 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
So we're tackling Ian Cummings' mock draft now. I will throw it on the screen for the time being. Again, it is linked way up in the chat. I will put another link to it here just in case anybody lost it. But yeah, we're gonna tackle this mock draft. You see Caleb Williams goes 101 to the Bears. As usual, we see that being a consistent thing across pretty much every mock draft that you're ever going to see. I believe he's like minus 22,000 or something to be the first pick in the draft.
It's still good enough odds to bet.
Seen.
It's still good enough odds to bet, to be honest. If I had 22 grand to throw on it, I would.
Yeah, I mean, you're making like $100 on that bet, I'm pretty sure. But yeah. Okay, so I'm on the board here at 102. We do get Drake May to the New England Patriots. JJ McCarthy is a Minnesota Viking, but and this is an interesting one because Marvin goes to the Bears in this example. They come up and get Marvin Harrison Jr. Malik Neighbors goes to the Cardinals. Giants take Rome Odunze. To me, just Odunze is just such a New York Giant. It's not even funny in my opinion. I just think that's what's going to happen on draft night. Yeah. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be my pick here. He is a Chicago Bear. So like you said, in Ian Cummings' mock draft, 101 and 102, both playing for the same team, one of them throwing to the other. So I actually really like that for Marvin Harrison, having Caleb Williams as a long-term quarterback.
And if could you imagine you tanked all gear, you ended up trading for somebody's first, got lucky, it ends up being the 102, your own picks at 101, and then you have what could end up being the best sack in fantasy in 3 years' time, 2 years' time, maybe even.
So this is going to be a hot take, and you and I are draft historians. The Bears have drafted 2 Hall of Famers in the top 5 in the past with Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus, and I believe if this were to happen, they might have done it again, to be honest. That's lofty expectations, but honestly, it's rare that it's going to work out that well for a franchise, and I think getting Caleb and Marvin in the same draft is ridiculous.
I would agree. Now my decision point would be between obviously May, Daniels, and Neighbors. And obviously that's going to be the decision point for a lot of people. Drake May is still my 103. People may be scared off by this New England Patriots landing spot, but as we'll see later in the mock, they did surround him with some really solid talent. I am a believer in Demario Douglas. I really do love what I saw from Demario Douglas last year. And funny enough, I did take Demario Douglas in the recent startup we did over on Flock Fantasy. So if you're entering as a rookie quarterback and you know your receiving weapons are going to be Xavier Legette, Jalen McMillan, Demario Douglas, and you're the caliber of player that I think Drake May is, I'm not scared off by the landing spot whatsoever. People may say, 108 Malik Neighbors goes to the Cardinals. Very, very good fit for him. Could be the number 1 for Kyler Murray. He would be in discussion for me as well. And then obviously some people may just prefer Jaden Daniels to Drake May. He goes here to the Washington Commanders. But I think the 103 to 105 tier that we view pre-draft would stay pretty strong post-draft. And I feel like people would have strong stances on one way or another where they go.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I really want to plug too, real quick, is our draft guide, our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide that has all of our write-ups, all of our prospect grades, everything that you guys have kind of heard us talk about so far. It's going to be free to those of you guys that have not yet signed up on Underdog Fantasy. So if you want to get our draft guide, get ready for your rookie drafts, and you don't want to take the plunge and sign up on Flock Fantasy, of course, it's available over there as well. You can just sign up on Underdog with $10 and use promo code FSE and get it for free as well. And also, in addition to that, we'll send you all of our film breakdowns that we've recorded for the site as well. So if you want to see us break down all 22 of Troy Franklin and all these dudes, we have them all in our package there to give you, in addition to our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, which we'll see one more update before the NFL draft. And then shortly after the NFL draft, we'll have one more update on top of that for sleepers and breakouts and busts and that kind of stuff within the confines of the rookie guide, knowing the landing spots in the draft capital. But 50 plus players ranked, talked about, written up, all that good stuff. And like I said, it's available with an Underdog sign up using promo code FSE. Perfect time to get on Underdog too, because Best Ball Mania 5 is going to be opening up as soon as the NFL draft is done, and you can win your shot of, we don't actually know what the prize pool is yet, but I would imagine it's going to be at least $3 million to first, if not potentially more.
And I'm telling you right now, if you guys haven't already seen those film breakdowns, like we roll up the sleeves and we go in depth, man. Like we're talking 3 to 4 minutes of clips compiled up, and we're spending 30, 40 minutes just breaking down the nuance, what he sees in terms of the scheme on the play, the timing. Like we break down every single aspect that we could possibly do to give you guys the glimpse of what the player you're watching really is. Like, what are they taught to do on this play? What are they doing wrong? Like, what are they thriving at? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How does it translate to fantasy, man? Like, I'm happy, and I feel like that's some of the most informative information we even have on the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And we still have a couple more to do too. We still got to tackle the quarterbacks,
Yep.
Xavier Legette and Keon Coleman before the season gets, or the draft gets going this week. So let me recap some of the picks here. I might actually pause this draft really fast if you guys don't mind, just because I want to rattle through this. What's up?
110 Brock Bowers. Holy Christ.
Okay, so let me just pause the draft real quick because I just want to recap what has happened so far. So I took Marvin, you took Drake May, Malik Neighbors, who, as we mentioned, was the 8th overall pick to the Cardinals in a trade backup scenario. Jaden Daniels goes off the board 105. He was the 102 in the real draft for the Commanders. Rome Odunze was the 6th overall pick for the Giants. He goes off the board 6th overall here as well. JJ McCarthy was a Minnesota Viking at 4th overall. He goes off the board 7th overall here. Brian Thomas Jr. slides to the Buffalo Bills at 25, which is ridiculous, but they do get him in this mock draft as well. Michael Penix Jr. goes off the board 13th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. He was the 9th overall pick in this draft. As you mentioned, Brock Bowers sliding all the way to 10 as an Indianapolis Colt at 15th overall. Then Adonai Mitchell goes off the board, 37th to the Chargers. Interesting landing spot there. Don't mind that in the second round. And then Johnny Brooks was a Dallas Cowboy at 56th overall, and we are officially caught up. So I will resume the draft.
Yeah, and there are still some very alluring names to be able to get at the top of the second round in this mock, to be honest. And it's funny because, like, although I would argue Bauer should be higher in the first round, like, you could make the case for all 12 of those guys being respective first round picks, to be honest. It just kind of goes to show you that the top 12 this year, like, you can make the case for, even in this mock in particular, like 16 guys going in that range.
Yeah, and I think it's just really nice to have this much depth if you guys own a lot of early second rounders as well, because you have a chance, really, depending on how your league is going to value certain players in the room and stuff. You're going to have a chance to get guys that maybe should have gone in the first round in most other rookie classes, at the 202, 203, 204, 205, potentially.
For sure. So we will, he's auto drafting. Okay. He's not here.
Yeah. I feel bad because I paused it on him. So I might have paused that. So I'm going to say he's not fired, but he did take Xavier Worthy, who I was going to take, which is kind of annoying, but he went off the board. Washington Commanders, 36th overall pick. Not a fit that we see very often. Xavier Worthy to the Commanders in the second round. I'm on the board here at, the next pick here. Ladd McConkey went 33 to the Panthers. That's a great fit. We still do 2 first rounders. Bo Nix, Denver Broncos, 27th overall is very interesting. Jalen Polk, 32nd overall to the Chiefs is very interesting because that's the Chiefs, obviously. Then we also have Trey Benson, 60th overall, the Bills, which is the pick I am going to make because I have Trey Benson ranked obscenely high. And Trey Benson going in the second round with that draft capital to Buffalo. Yeah, sign me up for that.
And for reference, the context in the mock draft, I believe, if you guys are big James Cook fans, like, you're going to go to the comments like, oh, they would never take a running back with James Cook there. But I think Ian makes a really good case for why adding that power element next to James Cook would be a lot of fun. You have James Cook, obviously, he's optimized as a receiver out of the backfield. And if you remember in Georgia, like, he was never asked to be this 20, 22 touch per game back. You plug in Trey Benson, physicality between the tackles, struggles in the nuanced part of the game, but you're getting that absolute beast to complement Josh Allen's power running. And then you have James Cook as your outlet, as your receiving back. Like, I think that'd be one of the best duos in the league. So I would be pretty excited there. And I would also be pretty excited if I was in a rookie draft and I got first round draft capital Bo Nix at the 203.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to pass on him, to be honest. Like, it was really hard to pass on him because I think he absolutely, you could make the argument that he could have gone in the first round of this rookie mock because he got 27th overall draft capital to a landing spot in Denver, where I believe it's a very good schematic fit for him. Like, we've talked about it ad nauseum so far with Sean Payton. He loves his accurate quarterbacks. He loves guys that can throw short accurately, especially. And Bo Nix, of course, the scheme that he played at, the fact that he set the FBS record in completion percentage. I know some people think it's like a Fugazi that he's accurate because he was throwing a lot of easy passes, a lot of checkdowns. But first of all, watch the tape, because even though he's throwing these easy passes and checkdowns, he's leading his receivers perfectly. Like, and also too, he was a top 3 most accurate quarterback in this class, 10 to 15 yards or 10 to 19 yards downfield and 20 plus yards downfield. So he is accurate. He just was aided by the scheme getting in rhythm a little bit at Oregon. And also when we were watching Troy Franklin and doing his film breakdown, we're like, dude, like some of these passes are perfect. And some of the wide receivers in this class wished they had Bo Nix as their quarterback in college.
Can we talk about the fact that people are just glazing Brock Purdy in the NFL, but then all of a sudden that they're going to go to Bo Nix and say, oh, the scheme is so tailor-made and so easy for him? It's like, dude, like if the guy can throw an accurate football, the guy can throw an accurate football. Like, yeah, we can break down from a prospect level going to the next why he's not quarterback 3 because of the system. But from an accuracy standpoint, like he is up there with the best of the class. And I think the underrated factor for Bo Nix that people don't give him enough credit for, man, is he is the best pre-snap decision maker in this entire class. He's able to diagnose his defenses at a high enough level to be able to get to the right check, to be able to get to the right read as soon as that ball is snapped. And that's a skill in its own right. People may be watching the film and think, oh, he's just getting it out of his hands quickly. It's like, well, no, you have to diagnose the defense, know what route's going to be the read on this play, and then being able to get that route and being able to get that pass off to that guy. So people don't give him enough credit for the cerebral processing that he displays on his Oregon tape, in my opinion. And to be honest, it really reminds me of kind of, back in the day, people really weren't sure of Dak Prescott when he was coming from Mississippi State. They were worried about the scheme. They were worried about, what he could become at the next level. And when he first got into the NFL, you saw that he was more of an athlete. He was running for first downs. He was really using his legs. But once he fully developed, that cerebral ability really showed on display. And I think if Bo Nix is put into the right situation, especially paired with Sean Payton, we could see that exact type of maturity from him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've described it as this before. We don't have a developmental league for football like we do for the NHL and the MLB and the NBA and stuff. But like Bo Nix basically is the example of why a developmental league would be a good idea, because he basically got more than one college football career out of it. And he got to develop at Oregon the way that he would have in like a G League, NBA, or in the AHL of the hockey leagues.
Like we saw him completely redevelop his game. And I don't know if people are low on him because of like that early Auburn tape, but man, like he is a completely different player. And sometimes, man, like it just doesn't work out in certain spots. You get to that next spot, you're developed the right way, you become the player that they envisioned you to be. And I fully think that's what's happened with Bo Nix.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really like, again, did I think I was going to like Bo Nix? No, because I remember watching like Seth Williams back in 2021 when he was the Auburn quarterback. And I was like, this Bo Nix guy can't hit the broadside of a barn. So, yeah. And that's also just such a green flag from a prospect standpoint. The fact that he was so inaccurate to the point that I was like, dude, this guy's ruining Seth Williams, like who's not a good prospect at all. I'm surprised that he was able to take that big of a jump in terms of what he was able to improve on at the NFL level. So I'm on the board here. What do we got left on the?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Is Ricky Pearsall gone yet?
Ricky Pearsall is not gone. Holy crap! What a steal!
Yeah, Ricky Pearsall being available here. What was that? Third round draft capital to the Detroit Lions. I think that's a great landing spot for him. Where did Jalen Wright go in this draft?
Fifth
round to the Rams, which is kind of brutal, but that would be the next how the Kyron Williams hive would react to something like that, because Jalen Wright is not a 5th round running back prospect, but this is kind of like Zach Evansy a little bit, where like we all were higher on the prospect than he actually went in the draft. I would hate that as a Jalen Wright like truther, but it would be interesting how the Kyron Williams market would react to a 5th round running back being added.
For sure. I mean, like, obviously I can't take him here. I'm looking at some of the names here. The top consideration, honestly, I don't think I could pass on Malachi Corley. Like, he goes 2nd round here, and I understand on the surface level, like Baltimore just basically has these short yards after catch playmakers on their offense. But we talk about, building a team like a basketball team. But sometimes when you have a scheme and when you have a play style that suits your quarterback, that suits your offense so well, You just stick it and run. You got Mark Andrews as your seam destroyer. You have now Malachi Corley, obviously Zay Flowers as your main yards after catch guys. Like, that's a very functional offense. And you can make the case the overall volume ceiling isn't great there, but I really do trust Todd Monken to get the best out of Corley. And in the early third round portion, getting a guy selected in the top 64 picks would be very fun.
Yeah, I want to address this because this is just, we've talked about Burton so far, and we'll talk about him more in tomorrow's video, but his profile is far from fantastic. So again, if people like Jermaine Burton, you like him because
maybe his RP profile.
Yeah. His reception perception profile, maybe that's what he's referring to here, is fantastic. He had a real, like, I guess Harmon really likes him, but when you talk about like an analytical prospect in Jermaine Burton, he's horrible on paper. Like, he's a horrible prospect. He played at 2 SEC powerhouses with NFL quarterback play, Stetson Bennett at Georgia, and 1 year of Bryce Young last year. Let's not forget that. Even though we can say, oh, Jalen Milroe disrupted his like development, it's like he should have been good last year with Bryce Young when no other wide receivers were to speak of there. So for me, Jermaine Burton, it's like, the attitude drops him as well, but I think the attitude is a result of why he wasn't getting better in college. It's like he has this good flashes of film, and to me, the old saying is flashes get you fired. And the reason I think flashes get you fired like applies to Jermaine Burton is because the reason he's flashing is because he has a bad attitude and doesn't work hard. Otherwise, he would have been more productive. Again, I don't know the kid. I have no idea what his actual, off the field antics are, but to me, it shows up in the numbers, which is why I actually believe it.
And I mean, the one story, I think it was last year when they lost to Tennessee, there was I believe a Tennessee like Volunteers fan, like she was running across the field and he like
tackled her or whatever.
Yeah. He like pushed her to the ground or something like that. And it's like, maybe there is some truth to the attitude issues, both in that and the fact that he never progressed from a statistical standpoint in college. But
usually where there's smoke, there's fire with these guys, man. Like, I've noticed it. Like, the one guy that it hasn't really affected is George Pickens. And even George Pickens, I think, could be better than he is, to be honest, if he had a little bit better wiring above the shoulders. But, man, when we hear this kind of stuff, we heard it about Tony. We heard it about Claypool. Like, it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire with these prospects. And to be honest, I don't really want anything to do with Jermaine Burton outside of like a 3rd-round dart throw, 4th-round dart throw in rookie drafts. If he goes top of the 2nd round, which he very well could, if a team's okay with the off the field concerns, he's going to go way higher than I'm willing to draft him in rookie drafts.
So he didn't even just push her to the ground. Apparently Timothy said he punched her. So she like ran across his face and he was mad and he just punched her out or something. Like, what the?
He's just like, again, I know PFF loves Burton. I know that Pelazzolo and Munson
pretty good, man.
I think he has good flashes on film. Like I said, I'm not grading flashes, man. Like I'm not. I grade the whole prospect. It's like your film flashes can factor in, but if you have a horrible analytical profile and off the field concerns, I'm literally not spending higher than a top 30 rookie draft pick on you.
Well, that's what it comes down for me, my NFL comp. And like I said, like my high end comp now is Kenny Stills. I still think the Darius Slayton is probably like, a 60th percentile outcome for him. 70th percentile outcome for him.
So his closest, let me know, like, again, we'll do a whole, I'll do a whole video on the prospect model because I haven't literally broken it down really at all so far for you guys. I just want to give you an idea of how the prospect model works. So basically it goes back to 2016 and it takes all of the analytical thresholds, all the film thresholds, including draft capital, PFF grade, that kind of stuff, as well as some traits related thresholds. So yards after catch ability, drop rate, contested catch, all that kind of stuff. Again, I'll explain it more when we actually get to that video in probably a week or two after the draft is when I'll do that, when I know real draft capital for these guys. But Jermaine Burton falls in the dart throw prospect tier, which is essentially not an area you really want to be in. He's projected 3rd-round draft capital according to NFL mock database. So that's what I'm going off of here. He also is in a bust potential group, which also includes the likes of Jalen Tolbert, Lynn Bowden, Ardarius Stewart, Miles Boykin, and Anthony Schwartz as far as wide receivers who went in the 3rd round in the bust potential tier since 2016. There is one hit that I didn't mention in this tier. Tank Dell, the only hit that came out of this tier. However, Tank Dell had no concerns of off the field work ethic. In fact, he was the
opposite. That was probably a pro for him.
Yeah. How great of a worker he was.
Yeah, no, that was probably his pro coming out is like, oh, damn, this guy works so hard. Like he's made it to where he is because he's an undersized guy that is now getting NFL looks. Like that was like what people like prided themselves on. So Yeah, no, it definitely is an issue. And I wish I didn't like the tape as much as I did, to be honest. But I mean, I got to give you guys the honest bone, man. He ended up being a top 17 overall wide receiver for me. I believe him and my wide receiver 16 had the same grade. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's difficult with these guys, but again, we want to contextualize just how good of prospects they actually are. We don't want to get caught up completely in like what the hype is, because if someone's getting hyped up that doesn't belong to be hyped up, that's what the model is for. It's supposed to recenter our attention, refocus our expectations, and give us ideas for comps, maybe athletically as well as.
Go, by the way?
Yeah, Ray Davis, I believe he went. Yeah, I'm on the board right now. Do you still have any of these second and third? Yeah, I think that Theo Johnson's the only one left, right? That was a third rounder.
I will check in a second.
Am I going to take Jermaine Burton right now? Am I about to take the guy that I just been talking shit about?
Probably.
No, actually, you know, I'm going to take Javon Baker, who's a fourth rounder of the 49ers. So I'm going to actually go with him. Sorry about that. There's some good backs on the board still, though. We got Estime on the board and Isaiah Davis
for
on the
sure.
board still.
Dude, Javon Baker, man, like people might think, oh, San Francisco low volume. It's like, well, first of all, if like take Javon Baker, like A, he's either going to play over Jawan Jennings right away, or B, they're probably going to trade Brandon Ayuk. So I'm not worried there. And to be honest, man, like they need that physical go and get it type of guy on the boundary too, which I think he would be a perfect fit on that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And after you make your pick, I'll give another free sample away here for Javon Baker in terms of how he graded in the prospect model, because he's actually somebody the model really likes, unlike Burton.
For sure. By the way, so I went with Burton last time, so I'm going to mix it up this time, and I'm going to go with Isaiah Davis. Goes in the 5th round here to the Carolina Panthers, and very similar to what I said with Jonathan Brooks. Isaiah Davis, obviously coming from a small school, you don't maybe want him to get those touches as a starter right away. You have Chuba Hubbard there, and eventually I just think Isaiah Davis is too talented not to be the main number one there. If you guys need that type of comp, you're thinking a David Montgomery, you're thinking a James Conner. Like, I really do feel like whoever drafts him are going to get him as a between the tackles power back that has some more upside, to be honest. Like, people just see, small school guy, but his PFF rushing grade each of the last 3 years has been top of the class.
Yeah. I think he's been somebody that I've gotten just so high on just because nobody else seems to like him. I don't know why. I don't know why Isaiah Davis isn't getting more buzz. I get it. He's a small school guy, and I'm sure, people are wary of like a Pierre Strong type who tested really well, but like Isaiah Davis was more of like a much more refined guy as opposed to like, what's his name? Who did I just mention? Pierre Strong was just an athlete that didn't really know what he was doing at that point. So I want to give you guys an idea and a snapshot of what the model looks like here, just because I think it's a fun conversation. Of course, there will be a full breakdown, a full, thing of how this model works and how the prospects stack up after the draft. So the wide receivers to target and avoid video I do every single year is gotten elevated to the nth degree this year, because we built an entire prospect model to make that video way better for you guys. And this is what it looks like in relation to Javon Baker. So Javon Baker is in the flex play tier among 3rd round receivers. The guys that he stacks up against, basically, that are considered solid 3rd round bets. Some of the smashes you can see: Downs, Golladay, Jalen Hyatt, and Michael Gallup. Again, this model is not going to bat 100,000. I mean, so Jalen Hyatt, even though he hasn't really worked out so far, 3 of 4 3rd round receivers, I would say, is a pretty decent hit right there. De'Ami Brown, Leonte Carew, Traquan Smith, Brian Edwards, Nico Collins, Devin Duvernay, Deontay Johnson, and Cedric Tillman are the types of bets we're talking about with Javon Baker. And again, keep in mind, we're talking about a guy that's going to be available in like the late 2nd, early 3rd round of rookie drafts. So when you see guys like Nico Collins and Deontay Johnson and Kenny Golladay and those type of guys, it's like, if you hit an early 3rd round pick and he turns into Kenny Golladay or Nico Collins, you're going to be very happy about that.
Well, I mean, if you're just so look at that list right there. How many total names are there? 10, 11?
Yeah, I mean, if you go for just the solid bets in terms of the flex place tier, you got only a couple hits 13. There, right? It's Nico Collins, it's Deontay Johnson. But there was points in time where Traquan Smith, Brian Edwards, and De'Ami Brown had a little bit of value as well. So it's not like those were total bums. It's just they didn't really end up working out from a production standpoint. They just,
So according to that list, and again, like Nico Collins, you can currently sell for a first. Deontay Johnson, I don't know if you could have sold for a first, like a random first straight up, but
you would have been able to at certain points in time. After his second year, when he was a top 10 receiver or top 12 receiver in points per game, you would have been able to.
You definitely would have been able to trade him for like the 109 on the board straight up, or the 110 like on the clock, right? Same thing with Michael Gallup. After his second year, he probably would have been worth about a 1st round pick, give or take. So if you're taking the hits there, it's 5 out of 13, I would say, that paid off. Like we're talking Gallup, we're talking Downs, we're talking Nico
Galladay.
Collins, Deontay Johnson, Galladay. What? That's 5, right? Or did I count 6?
Yeah, there's
Regardless,
5 guys that paid off. There's also
So-
there's also like guys that we don't really know yet. Like, I mean, Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, we assume they're not going to become superstars at the NFL level, but it's only been 1 year. Like, it's possible that they get better.
basically, so if we're contextualizing this, if it's 5 out of 13 hits, we're talking about almost a 39% hit rate, about 38.5% hit rate. But that's at third round opportunity cost in your rookie drafts. 39% hit rate to potentially get a guy that you can liquidate for a first at third round opportunity cost is a bet you take every time.
Yeah, also Poor went out for Leonte Carew. That's funny. Yeah, that was one fun part about doing this exercise and making this prospect model is that you got some blasts from the past when you were doing it. You're like, oh my God, remember Brian Edwards? Like, Brian Edwards is a name that also came up when I was like, oh my God, remember Brian Edwards when he was considered the next Terrell Owens and Randy Moss or whatever John Gruden said about him coming after his rookie season where he did absolutely nothing with no target competition.
Yeah, no, that was a wild fucking statement at the time and still is to this day.
Yeah. So we're going into the final mock draft of the video. We're going to do Chad Reuter's 7-round mock draft again. It is located in the same exact Google sheet as I linked earlier in the video. So make sure to check that out. I went way down on some of those comments already, Danny.
A manager offered you the 104 and the 105 for Gibbs, but he wants to wait till after the draft, kind of hoping Neighbors and Odunze have lackluster landing spots so I can get that deal done. So you're wait. So in a super flex league, he's offering the 104 and the 105 for Jahmyr Gibbs. For reference, Jahmyr Gibbs is like 2 spots behind Malik Neighbors in my rankings right now. Yeah, even if you prefer Gibbs, like this is fucking.
You're getting the insane. You're getting Daniels or May as the like add-on. Like it's pretty crazy that you're getting that good of an option. Yeah, that's. I mean, he said he wants to wait till after the draft. Like I would, if you have to add something to get that done now, I would do it.
Yeah, fuck, I would too.
Also, Danny, join the mock before
I'm in
the chat.
I'm in. Where do you?
I think Buffalo trades for Ayuk. I would if I was them. They're not going to get a number 1 receiver where they're picking. So if it all costs you is 28th overall and you got to pay Ayuk, I would 100% do it.
Yeah, but did they trade Diggs to get cost off their team because they were making some pretty
They were, but Diggs was also an aging player.
Fair.
Who is making a lot of money and kind of a bit of a head case too. So at least with Ayuk, he's in his prime. And yeah, you're going to have to pay him, but it's better than having an aging player that you're paying.
They were asking for 17 plus for Ayuk from the Jags. Like what plus 28 would be the equivalent of 17 plus? Like you're 1 and 2, and would Buffalo do that? Like I don't
think they'd give up that much knowing that they have to pay him. That's what I mean. Maybe the 49ers cool down on that price tag a little bit because it's been a little bit of time. Maybe all it costs you is 28 and you're third in 2025 or something.
Hilarious that Kuiper has Leggett in the first. Like, honest to God, man, like Leggett is the one I keep coming back to. Like, I'm just gonna be higher on him than consensus. Like, and again, like initially I wanted to say, hey, he's wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 in this class. I kind of cooled down a little bit. He's my 8, but like if somebody were to say, hey, like Xavier Leggett's my wide receiver 6 in the class, like I see the vision to it. Like I understand why you would come to that. It's just I'm seeing like people say, oh, he's wide receiver 16, he's wide receiver 17. And keeps coming back to the fact for me, it's like, did we watch the same fucking player play?
Yeah, no, it's again, he's a great player. He's just very difficult to evaluate because of what happened in his college career. It's like if we were told this is a 21-year-old prospect on this film who played 2 years of college football after being redshirted his freshman year, we would all have a completely different view of Xavier Leggett.
For sure, I agree. Chan says, maybe I'm crazy, but I really can't buy in on Jaden Daniels. I think he's one of the more overrated prospects I can remember. I don't know how anybody could take him over Neighbors. I agree.
I agree. I agree with Chan.
Like, I agree too,
wholeheartedly.
I do too. It's like you have to take him top 5 in the rookie draft because he's a quarterback.
I'm not going to be honest.
You have the 105. You're passing on him. What if you can't sell him and you have to pick at the 105? You're passing on him?
I would pick him at the 105 if I can't sell him, but the chances of me having to do that in multiple leagues is pretty slim. I would say that in most, if I have to get 1 share because I had to do that, that's fine. But to give you guys an idea, and it's not really anything against Jaden Daniels because he doesn't have to be that good to retain his value as a rushing threat quarterback. Let me just show you the top of this wide receiver model.
It's insane.
The 2 best receivers in the model are in this class, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. And people like push back on this. They're like, well, how do we know? Like they're graded as prospects. It's not, I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors are better NFL players than Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. But as prospects, yeah, they're better in terms of what they have analytically. There is nothing wrong with either prospect. Literally, there's like, they're almost perfect. They're 97% on the model.
All I'm going to say here is if you have two wide receivers that are legitimately in a bucket with two top 3 wide receivers valued on the market, you just have to take them. Like, you have to take them. Like, and that's kind of what it comes back to for me. It's like, well, people will say, you know, the quarterback value. And I understand, like, Jaden Daniels' top end ceiling in terms of startup value. Yeah, if he hits that tier 1 of quarterbacks, like maybe he's on the CJ Stroud level or, you know, around there, like after year 1, but he would need to have an all-time rookie season to do that. I feel more confident in Neighbors, and I mean, Marv's already up there based on value, but Neighbors and Marv to be valued within the Lamb, Chase, Jefferson tier after this year. And in terms of startup costs, like we see those guys consistently go in the mid-first round of startup. So it's not like you can say, oh, well, these 3 receivers are going at the early second, mid-second of startup, so you have to take the quarterback given the potential upside there. Like if the receiver hits, he could still be a mid-first round pick on the market.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I haven't seen prospects like this. I simply haven't. Like these guys are ridiculously good prospects. Like the hype, it's not hype. Like this is an objective model that measures how good their analytics are, how good their traits are, how good their film and projected draft capital.
What matters?
These guys are nails.
Yeah, for sure. Spencer Rattler's going to go in the 3rd. Yeah, I'm honest to God, I liked Rattler more than I thought I would too, to be honest. Lloyd to the Cardinals should be a 2nd. Yeah, like that's not a bad show. I don't remember what happened in that mock, but like
he was like the 90th pick or something for the Cardinals, which would be a fun fit there.
Where's Deebo Samuel value if traded for a first? I'll make my pick first, but okay. So what did this mock go?
So sorry, I put it in the thing here. It's Chad Reuter's mock. Again, if you guys have access to the sheet, it was linked up in the top of the chat. I will drop it one more time in the chat in case people got it lost there. Drop it here. Here we go. There it is. This is Chad Reuter's mock draft. Again, Caleb's 101. No surprise. He got a little crazy with this one. So don't just like assume this is going to be the same old sailing here because Malik Neighbors, who just went 103, we're just talking about him. I'm assuming because his prospect profile was so good. That's why he went 103. He actually slides in this mock draft here to the 13th overall pick to the Las Vegas Raiders, which is a fit I've probably never seen.
Never seen that in my life. That is wild. But then again, it's like if Malik Neighbors falls to the 13, like we got to live the draft day scenario. Hey, fucking
I'll just snag every 105 Malik Neighbors share that I could possibly get if that happens, because that's probably what's going to end up happening in the real life draft.
Well, I mean, like the Colts trade up for Bowers, the Cardinals trade up for Rome, the Chargers. Wait, okay. There's the 2 stars. Sorry, I'll erase that.
Yeah, sorry. The Chargers just stuck and picked Marvin Harrison.
Wait.
I forgot to get rid of that.
So the Cardinals traded down 2 picks with the Giants, and the Giants traded up for JJ. I mean, I talked about it with you at the top of the show, man. Like that's the decision point. How interested are the Giants at getting a quarterback? And I mean, like we've mentioned teams potentially trading above the Giants, but I guess in this one, the Giants just do it themselves.
Yeah, so I've long been of the opinion that the Giants have absolutely zero interest in JJ McCarthy, and they're simply saying they do so that Marvin falls to them.
Yeah, no, I could see them being a pump the market type of team.
I totally don't think they're interested in McCarthy at all. I think they are all in on this wide receiver class, and they want one specific guy to fall to them, and that's why they're saying they're interested in McCarthy.
So, by the way, Maddie says, "Where's Deebo Samuel's value if traded for a first?"
I mean, in the real life NFL, if a team trades a first for him,
I think what he means is like if I were to sell him off my dynasty team, like what type of first should I be getting? And
I would take a late one in this year's class for him pretty
easily, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel pretty good about the projections at the back end of the first round between the running back classes. If we get a 5th first round quarterback as well as the other wide receivers in that area, that they're about equal to Deebo Samuel's value. So.
Call me crazy. I think Deebo Samuel's value at this point is worth an early second, early to mid.
I think I would want, if I was selling Deebo, I would want slightly more than an early second for him. But if I could buy Deebo for an early second, I think that's about the going rate, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just the way I break it down, man, is I have Lab McConkey ranked above him, and Lab McConkey's like the 112 in this class.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'm on the board here. We got.
Can you show me the sleeper board quickly so I can? Yeah,
so Brian Thomas and McCarthy both went off the board there.
Bengals. Ooh.
Yeah, Brian Thomas to the Bengals is a nice fit. I'm on the. So I could go Bo Nix to the Vikings is hella interesting, but You know, I have to stay on brand. I would have to stay on brand in this situation. I actually really like both of these players, and they're both like kind of brand guys for me. But if Xavier Worthy goes to the Kansas City Chiefs, man, I'm going to have a hard time not clicking the button on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, for what it's worth, dude, this is a very, like, Flet wastes no time, takes Bo Nix, and I don't blame him.
11th overall capital for Bo Nix. That's
awesome.
a hell of a nutted landing spot for him.
Dude, if that happened, like, your rookie drafts are changed completely, like, on their head.
Brock says, how quickly will the rankings on Flock Fantasy be adjusted for landing spots? Brock, I will legit be doing them while the draft is taking place.
Literally though, like I'm gonna be making those fucking adjustments on the fly.
Well, it's fun for us to have the conversation when the pick happens, right? So I'm gonna be like, okay, where does this guy rank in rookie drafts? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys will be asking that question in the chat while the draft is going on. So I'm probably gonna workshop it while the draft is going on. And I would say the latest that those draft rankings will be on Flock Fantasy will be the night after the draft.
So I have a question for you. I don't think a Monroe would move at all. Like, I think he's pretty comfortably going to be my wide receiver 5 regardless. But I do have to ask you this question, and I will make the pick first. Is there any first rounders available? No, all the second rounders are though. I mean, Jonathan Brooks of the Cowboys is just, he fucking goes at the last pick. Okay. Give me a second. I haven't looked at the board. Yeah, where does Benson go? What? Is Trey Benson not go in the first 3 rounds?
Trey Benson went at 71 to the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's a solid spot, dude. I think I'm just gonna take Ladd though, to be honest.
Okay, put him in your queue because you might auto pick the second I unpause it.
AD Mitchell's here too. Oh, to the Bears. Yeah, I'm going Ladd. That is fucking. That's a tough one.
Make sure he's in your queue because the second I resume, it's gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, you know what? While it's paused, let me just give a recap of what happened in the first round here because we were kind of talking about other shit when it was going on. So, again, we're talking about Reuter's mock draft. We actually see the receivers go off the board a little bit higher than the quarterbacks because Odunze goes to the Cardinals at 106. They trade up for him, and then he goes at 104 in our rookie draft. Drake May, 3rd to the Patriots. He goes 5th in our rookie draft. Daniels goes 106, which I think I don't know if I can get behind, to be honest, but we have Brock Bowers going number 9 to the Indianapolis Colts in a trade-up scenario. J.J. McCarthy, as we mentioned, was traded up for by the New York Giants. He goes number 8 in this draft. Brian Thomas slides to the Bengals. He goes number 9 in this draft. I took Xavier Worthy 110, who went to the Kansas City Chiefs at 19, who they traded up for. Bo Nix, 11th overall pick to the Minnesota Vikings. Great fit for him there. And then Jonathan Brooks went 56th overall to the Dallas Cowboys. Did you know that the Cowboys doctor did his ACL surgery? That's the fit there. So
yeah. IDUP says traded Kyle Pitts in 302 for McBride and a start 10.75 tight end premium. I'm very comfortable making this move for McBride, knowing the context that you have Kyler, knowing the context that you have London. Like, I love Kyle Pitts. I do still view McBride as being a tier slightly above, and the 302 isn't a big cost for me to make this move to cross over that barrier. So I don't mind this move at all, especially if you have enough depth to be able to withstand the 302 loss. Because 302 in this class is still a valuable pick in my opinion, but in this circumstance, give me McBride here.
Yeah, for sure. And Brock didn't ask this question specifically, but if you guys are curious to like the updated version of the rookie draft guide, that should also be live on the site like Sunday, like right after the draft is done too. We will add in our like sleepers and our breakouts and our busts and that kind of thing into the rookie draft guide the second we're done that. And as we mentioned earlier on in the stream, if you guys do want access to that, of course, flockfantasy.com, promo code FSC is how you can get it. But we're also going to email it to you, I have Underdog email it to you, our rookie draft guide once it's live. If you sign up on Underdog using the promo code FSE, we'll send over the final version to them. So Sunday, when we have the breakouts and the sleepers and all that kind of stuff is when you'll get it. So if you have a rookie draft on Sunday, you should get that message from Underdog if you've used our Underdog promo code in the past, since 2024 started, probably is who we'll send it to. So in case you guys didn't know, if you've used our Underdog promo code this year, and if you want to still use it during the draft and get ready for BBM5, you can get our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide for free. And I mean, we haven't actually announced this yet, but you'll probably also get a redraft guide for free as well. So there's no reason not to get in the action on Underdog Fantasy right now.
Oh yeah. Best platform for sure. Y'all breaking down Blake Watson. Heard a lot of people talking about him deep in drafts. I was looking at his profile because I've been seeing him go in like the 4th, 6th round mock draft area in a lot of these mocks. And I was breaking down the profile. He's got a little bit of receiving game to him, relatively decently efficient as a runner. It is Memphis, where like it seems like there's efficient running backs coming out every single year, so it might kind of play into the scheme. But I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't watched his all 22. I can't confirm the player, but I will say he's the type of profile that looks semi-interesting once you get into the round 3, round 4 part of your rookie drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if you like the player, by all means, take the shot on him. I have not watched him in depth yet because he hasn't really been on my radar. And there will be guys that I might have to go back and watch after the draft is over if they get sneaky good draft capital or landing spots that I wasn't expecting. Like Isaiah Pacheco, after he was drafted by the Chiefs, was a guy I had to go back and watch after the draft was over. Okay, so what am I on the board here? Jalen Polk, is he on the board?
Jalen Polk should be available, yes.
Yeah, we also have Tez Walker, who is a Saint. We also have JT Sanders.
You're taking Polk. Let's be real. You're taking Polk.
Yeah, did Benson go?
He went.
He literally went one pick before me.
Yeah.
Whoops, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, I'm gonna take Polk. You're right.
Yeah, I figured. He sniped flat. Hey, fellows, hope all is well. Appreciate that, Ben. He says, would y'all say this wide receiver room is middle of the pack or bottom half of the league? Tyreek, Devontae, Addison, Reed, Ridley, Dotson, Palmer. Like in a start 10, I think it's a solid wide receiver core, to be honest.
That's probably top 5 in your league, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would say like 4 to 6 range. Like that's solid. You got your wide receiver 1 there. You got a couple nice ancillary pieces. Reed, Ridley, obviously Dotson and Palmer, big projection to ever actually play into your lineup. But in the start 10, the fact that you go 5 deep, like typically you'd want to be 6, but in the start 10, I don't mind that. I think you're pretty solid. MVS, get rest in oil, Burns profile. One quarterback hot take from you guys. My hot take is McCarthy goes before Daniels.
He won't.
Hear me out.
See how you're getting there.
Hear me out. If Drake May goes 2nd overall, I can see it happening. Because I don't
England taking McCarthy.
I don't think New England likes Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic narrative for the Patriots. Everybody's talking about. I don't know. I think they would trade down.
I just haven't heard any buzz with them.
I think that the Giants or the Raiders or another team would maybe come up for Daniels.
I just haven't heard any connections with Daniels to the New England, and maybe I'm just speaking out of my ass.
I think it's just that we've never seen a quarterback like that play for New England, so people are making that low hanging fruit connection. I guess we have, but. I don't know. To me, it just seems like low-hanging fruit to say that they wouldn't like
100%.
They want Drake May and JJ McCarthy.
For sure. Keon Coleman's the best receiver here, and that would be such a Steeler pick. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
that'd be such a Steeler pick.
I actually
84th
really like
overall value.
Keon Coleman, to be honest.
That'd be awesome for him, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like real talk, if we're talking about Keon Coleman, 84th overall, like, if we took Ricky Pearsall at 63 over Keon Coleman, when Keon Coleman went 21 picks later, I'd be pretty upset. And I like Pearsall, but I mean,
Cowboys taking Pearsall would be funny, I think.
That'd be a good fit for the offense. I just think if Keon Coleman's there, there's just no way you can pass him up.
Franklin was there too.
Yeah. Like, especially knowing too that you're like, you have, obviously this is such an overblown connection, but you have family ties there with CeeDee Lamb and fucking Keon Coleman being cousins. Like, if he fell to 56, that's already a value.
I think he's going to be the pick guaranteed, to be honest. Between him and Jonathan Brooks, one of them is going to be their 56th overall pick. One of them.
I think Keon Coleman's going to go top 50 for the record. Like, I don't think he'll be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if these like middle of the first round teams with their second rounder like suddenly start hammering receivers in the mid-second round, like the Colts, the Saints, the Falcons, those types of teams.
For sure. No, it'll. I think a ton of receivers. Like, we could be talking about by the end of the second round. Oh shit, 16 wide receivers are off the board.
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. Ben says sell ETN, Devontae, 2025 third for AJ Brown, Christian Kirk, almost like Christian Watson, and a 207. Honestly, I think I like the AJ Brown, Christian Kirk, and 207 side of this deal.
I think I do too.
I'm very high on Christian Kirk from like a immediate production stamp. I think he's gonna be one of the steals of dynasty startups as well as redraft leagues too, because I think you can get this guy if you build a competitive team in a startup. You can get him in like the 9th, 10th round as like your 4th or 5th wide receiver. And if you're in a PPR deep starting lineup league, I think Christian Kirk's gonna be a ridiculous value in dynasty.
I got to ask you this question. And again, it depends. Like if Etienne is your only running or like one of your only two running backs and you're a top contending team and you're good at receiver, like obviously there's context behind this, but assuming that you have relative need, like even needs between receiver and running back. I mean, this might even be the team that you said you might be weak at wide receiver. I don't know, but my 207 right now is like Keon Coleman, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, kind of in that range, and Bo Nix, if he obviously gets high capital, is going to work.
I think you
get.
I think you get lucky at 207, and Xavier Legette or something could fall to you.
But that's what I mean. It's like you're getting a good name there. So contextually speaking, what is the value difference between Christian Kirk and 207 versus Devontae Smith straight up? Like, because like on paper, it's like ooh, like no, but like. If I told you right now you can get Christian Kirk and Keon Coleman going in the second round in exchange for Devontae Smith, what side do you want?
I think I would still take Smith potentially. He said it was a start 10 too, so I think I would still take Smith. But knowing that you're getting the ETN to AJ Brown upgrade, I think
for a third. That's what I mean.
Out.
Yeah. So like,
I actually like every player in this deal for what it's worth. I love Smith. I love ETN. I love AJ Brown. I love Christian Kirk. So it's hard because I like all the players in this deal.
For sure. Like how much younger is Smith than Kirk right now? Probably like a year or two.
Yeah, something like that. I'm on the clock, and I really got to figure out what I'm doing here.
Like, what is Christian Kirk's? What, a 97 or 96?
Yeah, we got to gray out some names here because we're kind of dropping the ball.
96
at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, no, my bad. I was getting some comments.
Okay, Lloyd to the Buccaneers. Is he on the board still? Nope.
I'll block that. Tez Walker.
Sinnott on the board. Okay, I'll take Benson on 65th overall.
Tez Walker went. JT Sanders did go as well. You took Benson on? Okay.
Yep.
Any other names go that I missed? Shipley.
Malik Washington went too.
Shipley, I got. Okay. We should be caught up now.
Johnny Wilson.
Rattler. And Rattler goes to the Broncos. Two separate mocks having him go 76th overall to the Broncos. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, Malachi Corley on the board still? Oh, no, he went too.
He went?
Yeah, he went. Early second round. Or early third round, I mean.
Gail Coleman in the third round with 84th overall draft capital would be interesting.
I think day 3 of the draft is going to be really interesting this year because the class is just deep in general, and it's going to be very, very strange seeing how many good players slide to day 3, I think. Oh, and there goes my camera.
I'll figure that out, and I'll knock some comments after I make my pick too, so it's easier for us. Looking at the board though, Kate Stover, Theo Johnson as the only day 2 guys left. Day 3, I mean, Jalen McMillan to the Ravens is enticing. Javon Baker to the Bucks is also enticing. I think I'm gonna go McMillan. Is he available? McMillan? What? Am I tripping? Where's McMillan? Oh, he's gone. What? Okay, I didn't see that. Let me do that. And who's still available here? Baker. Okay, so I will take Javon Baker in the 4th round. All right, so Brian Thomas or Brock Bowers at the 107. I would still go with Brock Bowers there, Karthik. Brian Thomas, Bills, Bowers, Jets. I would still take Brock Bowers. Why is no one's talking about the Lions potentially taking an outside receiver? I think it's definitely in play there. They lost Josh Reynolds, right? Like Josh Reynolds, I believe, went to the Broncos, no? If I'm not mistaken, Josh Reynolds. He signed with the Denver Broncos, so they definitely could use, an outside possession type of wide receiver, which is why I think the Polk fit would be really fucking fun. Doomsday going to the G-Man, can definitely see that. I think the Chargers roster so thin, they would be the team to trade back, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you there, Chan. I agree. I think a lot of people forget this wide receiver class is deep. This wide receiver class is deep, and I think Corey mentioned it, but the top 3 are just in a tier of their own, in my opinion. Like, I really do feel like they're far ahead of the class, and this is a really good class. I hope the Falcons trade back because we'll be able to still grab a pass rusher in the mid to late first with all these offensive players being pushed up. Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. The 8th overall honeypot, like if a quarterback pick or a wide receiver picks there and you guys can trade down to 11, 12, 13, or even later, like you could still get a Quinyon Mitchell, Tyrion Arnold, edge rusher of your choosing at that, mid first round type of player, type of pick. This Coleman to the Falcons landing spot is perfect. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun for him there. Yeah, I agree with that. The top 3 are more than likely going to give you instant production, but if they want to tackle, I can see them trading back and taking Ladd a little later than his projection, a little earlier than his projection. Yeah, that would make sense too, Slasher. I can see that. Coleman being Cousins' new Thielen is chef's kiss. Yeah, kind of giving you that possession wide receiver that you can play in the slot. The one thing I will say is they do run the risk of potentially not having enough speed in their offense, having both London and Coleman as 2 of their, their top 2 receivers, period, 2 of their main 3 receiving threats. So maybe for the Falcons specifically, I'd want a little bit more top end speed, knowing that you have Drake London. But regardless, so I think it could work out very well for him because I believe in Keon Coleman.
Yeah, we're like the only people who do apparently in the fantasy space. I
Feels
think
like
I already talked about it, but I think the reason I believe in Keon Coleman is because he's being priced at a point where I'm like, yeah, I'll believe in him. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. If
I think
like
at the beginning of rookie draft fever and just like the rookie cycle in general, back in January or whatever, like NFL draft analysts were talking
like
about
the wide receiver
as like a top 15 pick. And I'm like, would I have been in on Keon Coleman at that price tag? Hell the fuck no. But now he's like sliding to day 2 and he's like 209 in rookie draft.
Has anything changed, by the way? Like, has anything actually changed from that, or did they just want to prop him up because they haven't gotten to the rest of the receiver class at that point?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah,
I took him. Yeah. Sorry, my bad. I've been answering some comments. Much as I like John Brooks, I agree with you, John Jacob, but he went with Brooks over Bo Nix. But if Bo Nix goes at the 112 in the NFL draft, or I think he went 111 or day 1 regardless, I still have to take Bo Nix personally. Buffalo was trying to desperately to bring a power runner last year. Yeah, I think the Benson fit would be really fun. Having Allen, Kyler, and Purdy at quarterback is taking Odunze at 104 a reach. If Neighbors for sure goes 103 in a league, that's hard to trade in. Like, can you? I mean, this is gonna sound like such a cop-out. Can you trade Purdy? Can you trade Kyler? Like, can you trade someone? Like, if not, like, I don't want to take Odunze at the 104. I definitely would want to trade down from the pick, or like just trade it for future capital.
Like, just trade the pick for a receiver too.
Like, I feel like we always get to this, like, oh, like there's potential stuff in the way. Like, for example, like, oh, my league isn't active, I may be forced to make this pick. It's like, more often than not, deals do end up materializing. So that never really actually ends up being the case. I've found is like, if somebody does have interest and does have a need, you should be able.
Oh, Danny just lagged out for me. I don't know about anybody else. I'll just put him in the back seat for the time being here. But I know what he means. It's like, if someone else has a need, you should be able to move off of that pick for a quarterback. My favorite thing to do in that scenario, if you did have that 104 pick or whatever, and you needed a wide receiver, would be like, why don't you just go and trade for like Garrett Wilson or Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody like that?
Yeah. Like, don't force yourself to take a suboptimal option. Like, be creative.
As much as I love Odunze, like, if you can get those guys instead of Odunze, I would prefer them.
I mean, just straight up, like, if you can't get Malik Neighbors, you can't get Marvin Harrison at that 104 because they're both going to be gone. Then at that point, it's simple to me. Like Corey said, like, Kyler should be able to get you any second-round receiver of your choosing, barring maybe Amon or St. Brown. And I guess, like, obviously Marvin Harrison.
Well, I was talking about the pick specifically. The 104 specifically would be what I would use.
But I was going to say,
you could take the discount on the quarterback as well. Yeah, like, you have opportunity. Like, we're going to do that. The series we did a couple months ago where we talked about, like, what to do with every, like, if you have the 101, if you have the 102, if you have the 103, if you have the 104. We're going to do that after the draft, and it's going to make a lot more sense when we're doing it after the draft because we'll know who's going where and where the value pockets actually align. But that video is so important because when you're on the clock in every one of your dynasty leagues, if you're in 5 dynasty leagues, if you're in 2 dynasty leagues, if you're in 12 dynasty leagues, it doesn't matter. You're going to look at each one of your picks and be like, okay, I'm picking 102 here. Do I need Marvin? Should I take Marvin? Is Marvin very valuable in my league? Can I move down from this pick? Like, you're going to want to evaluate your options at each one of those spots. And if you're in a position, and naturally, if you're in a lot of dynasty leagues, this is going to happen. You're going to be on the board at like 104 or something. And you're going to know that like Marvin and Malik Neighbors are going to go ahead of you or something because the guys ahead of you have like elite quarterback cores. And you're like, well, I don't need a quarterback either because I have an elite quarterback core myself. That's when you start shopping that pick. And that's when you start trying to sell it for Garrett Wilson, or that's when you try and move down to 106 where you can take Rome Odunze, or maybe that's where you try and package down to 109 plus a 2025 first or something like that. Like, that's when you just explore your options and exhaust all your avenues.
Hey, and if you guys watch that first video, you'll know this term. Just remember DD, and I'm not talking drunk driver. I'm not talking any other acronym for DD.
Dynasty decisions. No, due diligence.
No. Do fucking diligence. Do your damn due diligence. Don't just sit there and say, hey, like, this is what's going to happen. I may be forced to make this pick. It's like, then do everything in your fucking power to make sure you don't have to settle on that pick. Go out there, see what interest you're getting on your active roster, see what interest you're getting for the pick, see and inquire with the guy at 103. Are you leaning Neighbors? Like, are you leaning quarterback? Like, where are you leaning here? do your freaking due diligence. Because I mean, we even brought up in that video, dude, like sometimes like if you just ask someone and you have a good relationship with someone in your league, like they'll give you a picture as to what they're thinking at that pick ahead of you, or they'll give you a picture to what they value, and you can kind of connect the dots, man. Like just getting as much information as possible increases your resources to potentially make your team better in said league.
Yeah, I have the 107 in one of my leagues, and I legit asked the guy with 106 if Odunze was there, would you take him? And he's like, "There's zero chance I would pass on him." So I literally just got information for free from this guy. Like I know I'm getting Bowers at 107.
Is that TST?
Huh?
TST?
No, it's not. It's a different league. I have a lot of 107s this year. But yeah, it's crazy. Like you'd think, why would he tell you that? It's like some people don't know what you're doing. If they're not like, experienced Dynasty players, might be like, "Oh yeah, like I'll take Odunze if he's there." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Actually, that's very good information for me. I know I'm not getting Odunze at 107 now."
100%. And again, it's like, I didn't mean to single you out, Connor, because I just like, I hear this brought up so much. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is someone's like, "Oh, like I don't have a choice. Like will I have to do this?" Like, yeah, smooth said it perfectly. Do your fucking due diligence is always going to be my answer. Because if you're getting put into a suboptimal position, just don't accept it. Don't just say, fuck, I need a receiver, therefore I'm taking. Like, no, do everything in your power to avoid it.
Sometimes you have to accept a falling value, not necessarily that you have to switch and draft for need, because we talk about that as a big-time rookie mistake, or a rookie draft mistake for rookie dynasty players, where if you're on the board at 103 and like Caleb Williams is on the board, just like literally take Caleb Williams and let him accumulate value to the point, like as people did this with Stroud last year. It's like, I had leagues where I didn't need a quarterback, and at 105, 106, CJ Stroud fell to me. And I'm like, I guess I'm just taking CJ Stroud here.
You are building an asset collection. And it's so funny, too, because it's always like with the earlier picks, because like by the time the end of the first round rolls around, like people kind of know, like, hey, I need a receiver, need running back. It's a pretty flat tier. Just kind of pick and choose who you like. But it's always an earlier picks. And my response is always, if you have an earlier pick, like, is making the wide receiver pick all of a sudden going to make you a top contender? Because if it isn't, why are you even drafting for the production of the receiver? Just draft based off the market, draft based off which asset will hold the most market value. And as much as I love Rome, like I view him as a late third round type of startup value. Like if the market views him as a fourth or fifth, and the market views Jaden Daniel, JJ McCarthy, Drake May as, late second, early third rounders, like, you're just sacrificing the difference between what it would cost in a startup to move down from the late second, early third to the mid fourth round. You're just sacrificing it for free, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, and Tim's got a point. Maybe they'll tell you they're going to do something, and they'll do something different in the draft. It's like what I would do.
Then you know the character of that guy moving forward.
Yeah,
that's exactly information.
What I would do if I were you guys, however many dynasty leagues you're in, get a piece of paper and a pen down. Be like, okay, I got 102, I got 104, I have 109.
Even on a Google sheet.
Yeah, Google Sheet, whatever you got. I'm a pen and paper guy, so that's what I'll probably end up doing for my leagues. And I'm in 11 dynasty leagues, so it'll probably take me a little bit of time. But write down all your picks. Also, pretty much every one of those 11 dynasty leagues, I got a lot of firsts
scoring settings, context.
Yeah, get the scoring settings down. Jot down. Okay, I'm at 109. I ideally want a receiver, because at 102 and 104, I'm going to get Marvin Harrison with one of those picks, and then whatever quarterback falls to me at 104, because I need a quarterback also. At 109, I would love if Brian Thomas, if Xavier Worthy, if one of these guys fell to me. What is 108 going to do? What is 107 going to do? Can I, on the clock, if 109, if I, me, I love Xavier Worthy, and I'm pretty big on Brian Thomas as well at that 109 area, then I'm going to, if they're both gone, like if they both go, that means that Bowers has slid to me, and I'm just going to take Bowers, or I'm going to take McCarthy if McCarthy has slid to me, or I can trade 109 for a receiver on the clock. So writing down, okay, 109, what would I ideally like this receiver, this player to fall to me? What am I going to do as a pivot strategy? Maybe trade for a veteran wide receiver. Maybe you can buy Nico Collins with that 109 or something like that. And then other pivot strategies include, maybe I want to try and trade up on the clock. Maybe I want to trade back to some of these teams that need, whatever receiver. Maybe there's a quarterback that slid to me at the 109 as well.
And if you guys are subbed over on Flock and you kind of want to know, okay, well, like I want to be active, but I don't necessarily know how to use valuations. All you have to do is see our startup rankings. No, okay, well, Jaden Daniels is, FSC's consensus. I have him at 26. You probably have him, inside your top 30, right around that area?
Yeah, I think he's at like 30, like almost exactly.
But the point remains, like, if he is valued by both of us consensus-wise in our top 30, and you're looking to trade the pick that will be Jaden Daniels on the clock, look, okay, who's around him in startup rankings? Oh, wow. I love Puka Nacua. I want to trade up for him.
I'll tell you right now exactly where Jaden Daniels is relative to my startup rankings. I have Jaden Daniels. I actually have him higher than you. That's wild.
Really?
I have Jaden Daniels at 24, actually.
So you have
the guy
London
that's immediately ahead of him for me is Malik Neighbors, who's in this rookie draft. But the two guys immediately behind him are AJ Brown and Puka Nacua, and then Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson are right ahead of him as well. So,
you have Puka and Garrett Wilson behind him.
I have Garrett Wilson ahead of him.
So who was the other receiver you said with Puka? Behind
AJ Brown.
Daniels? AJ Brown. Okay. So I have the difference is I have Drake London one spot ahead of him, and I mean that might actually be the perfect pivot. Like in most league markets, you may be able to get Drake London plus for Jaden Daniels on the clock.
Oh, you'll easily get Drake London plus, I think.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think like again, given the market value too, like what happens if the Jets draft like a 3rd round running back or something and Breece Hall is suddenly available for that 105 or whatever that you have? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's pivots that are going to happen after the NFL draft based on what happens during the draft as well. Like if the Rams draft a 1st round receiver, maybe Puka Nacua is available for like 3rd round startup prices.
Well, I funny enough, actually, I can speak on this with a contextualized example. In our Devy league, I have already on my roster. Keep in mind, Devy works a little bit different than Dynasty. So, like, I'm just trying to explain it from a Dynasty perspective, right? So, I had the rookie 101, which, given the deflatedness, because obviously you can pick your Devies, the 101 was Jaden Daniels because nobody selected him in the Devy pool. Obviously, big historic rise. He's going to be about the 104, 105 valuation in a lot of your rookie drafts. I was able to trade Jaden Daniels plus for Bijan Robinson from a guy who needed a quarterback because I already had Anthony Richardson, because I already Drake May, because I already had Will Levis on my roster. Instead of just saying, oh, at the 101, because I have all these guys, I may just take Rome Odunze over Jaden Daniels because Rome Odunze is the consensus 102. Instead of just doing that, I'm like, you know what? I got to be proactive here. Some other guys in this league need quarterback. I want an anchor running back based on how I built my team with, Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, those quarterbacks. I end up making that deal, give him a little bit of a Devy swap up. He picks a little bit higher. I pick a little bit later. But the point remains, I'm able to get Jaden Daniels market value in that trade rather than just sacrificing Jaden Daniels and taking Rome Odunze. Because if I had just taken Rome Odunze, I wouldn't end up with Bijan Robinson on my team.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like you're kind of bartering something that's more valuable. Like if you went to like a swap meet, or like if we were in medieval times and like you went to the steak station of the thing and it was worth say $10 for a steak and you wanted fish that night and it was $7 for fish. Well, instead of going to buy the fish for $10, you just grab the steak and then sell it to the fish vendor and pocket $3.
Exactly.
That's basically what we're talking about here. So again, a lot of rookie draft talk. I mean, this is not going to be the only time we do rookie drafts in the next couple of weeks. This is just the final rookie draft talk we're going to have from a mock draft standpoint until the actual draft happens. But of course, somebody asked us, I think IDUP asked us when the stream will start. The stream will start about 15 minutes before the draft starts. So whatever, like 7 o'clock, give or take. Eastern on Thursday. We will be live for the entire first round. We'll be live for the entire day 2 on Friday night. And we'll be live for, I would say, a good portion of day 3 potentially as well on Saturday afternoon. So make sure to join us for that. And again, if you want our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, we talk about all that stuff in there. Flockfantasy.com, promo code FSE. Of course, Underdog Fantasy using promo code FSE for 100% back on your first deposit. You'll also get our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide and our Dynasty Rookie Film Breakdowns for free as a result of that. And then come the redraft season, you'll get our redraft guide for free as well. So if you haven't already signed up on Underdog, you've seen the signs behind us, you don't really know what it's all about. They got tons of contests going on right now. Big boards are closing up pretty soon, but Best Ball Mania 5 will be live probably right after the NFL draft. Massive prize pool. It'll probably be a huge prize pool. I don't actually know what the details are yet because they haven't announced them, but they will be very, very high. And of course, you can get action on that as soon as the draft is finished using promo code FSE, like I said. So with that being said, we're going to hop out of here and finish up our Sundays here. Join us tomorrow for top 20 wide receiver rankings in the 2024 NFL draft. Going to be probably a longer video, but it'll be a fun discussion anyways. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.